Triumph is a Canadian hard rock power trio that was popular in the late 1970s through the 1980s. Between the band's 16 albums and DVDs, Triumph has received 18 gold and 9 platinum awards in Canada and the United States. Triumph was nominated for multiple Juno Awards, including Group of the Year award in 1979, 1985, 1986 and 1987. Like their fellow Canadians Rush, Triumph began building their reputation across North America as a live band, peaking in the early to mid-1980s. The band was formed by Toronto music veterans Gil Moore, Mike Levine, and Rik Emmett in 1975. History = the 1970s = Triumph is a Canadian power trio, often compared to fellow Canadians Rush. The band's musical style was hard rock and heavy metal, although the band itself was reluctant to embrace this label. Moore once described Triumph as a cross between Emerson, Lake and Palmer and The Who. Guitarist Emmett's songwriting style showed a progressive rock influence, as well as displaying his classical music influence. Each Triumph album included a classical guitar solo piece. Moore also doubled as lead singer on many of the band's heavier songs. Bassist and pianist Levine produced their early albums. Triumph's style proved unpopular with rock critics, much like many progressive rock and heavy metal bands. Rolling Stone reviewers labeled them a faceless band. Moore and Levine scouted Emmett one summer night in 1975 at a West End Toronto club on the Queensway, called the Hollywood Tavern, where Emmett was playing in a band called ACT3. The three musicians subsequently got together for a jam session in the basement of Moore's house in Mississauga, after which Moore and Levine showed Emmett promo materials and contracts they had already secured for gigs starting in September of that year. They offered Emmett a guaranteed minimum weekly paycheck of $175, and Emmett agreed to join as an equal founding partner. Triumph's first paid concert was at Simcoe High School on September 19, 1975, for $750. By August 26, 1978 they were headliners at the Canada Jam Festival at Mosport Park, playing before a crowd of 110,000 people. Triumph signed their first record deal with Attic Records in Canada. They later signed with RCA Records in the US, covering all areas except Canada. After the RCA deal ended in acrimony, MCA Records picked up the band and re-released all their music to date in 1984. After the shift to MCA, the band began to work with outside producers, and their studio albums became increasingly difficult to replicate on stage. Rather than following the sequencer-laden path taken by Rush to remain a true power trio, Triumph later added Rick Santos, a Toronto guitar and keyboard player, to support their last three tours. Triumph's first album was rare outside Canada, but their widely released second LP, Rock and Roll Machine, received some scattered airplay, with Gil Moore's cover of Joe Walsh's Rocky Mountain Way. In mid-1978 Triumph subbed in for Sammy Hagar on an Fathom radio station promotion date in San Antonio, Texas, followed by a run of 5 shows in Texas for Jam Productions, then toured across Canada with fellow Canadian rockers Moxie and Trooper. San Antonio remained a popular location for the trio throughout its career. Triumph's third album, Just a Game, featured a minor U.S. radio hit, Hold On, which reached the top 40. The album eventually went gold in the U.S. Hold On made it to number 38 on Billboard, and it became a significant song in some select markets. In St. Louis, for example, the song made it to number 1 on KSHE, an AOR-FM classic rock radio station. More significantly, the song Lay It on the Line received an even greater acceptance at AOR-FM radio across the US and Canada. The heavy rotation FM radio airplay of Lay It on the Line solidified the band in the minds of classic rock audiences. In oldies classic rock formats, it remains the most widely played and recognized song from the Triumph catalog. The 1980s both 1981's Allied Forces and 1983's Never Surrender attained gold record status in the United States. Triumph also began releasing a string of moderate hit singles in the early 1980s. Allied Forces eventually sold over 1 million copies in the US and included the rock radio staple Fight the Good Fight. Never Surrender saw the band's compositions take on more political overtones. Previously, Rik Emmett seemed content to limit himself to a single political theme on each previous Triumph album. However, Never Surrender featured no fewer than 5 anthems. The Jimi Hendrix-inspired riff rocker Too Much Thinking even samples Ronald Reagan from one of his presidential speeches. Rolling Stone gave Never Surrender a 1-star rating, yet the album earned gold record status in the United States. Perhaps more damaging to Triumph's success, their relationship with RCA soured at this point, and the label did little to support their albums. MCA Records executive Irving Azoff demonstrated his faith in the trio by co-opting their debts and signing them for 5 albums. Following their 1984 label change, MCA took over distribution of their old catalog for 10 years. Thunder 7 debuted on compact disc in late 1984, a time when relatively few people could afford CD players. Despite 2 hit singles and videos, Spellbound and Follow Your Heart, the album failed to achieve expected levels, even though cassette and vinyl copies were soon released. Thunder 7 is perhaps the band's high mark, with Rik Emmett's lyrics addressing social concerns in a surprisingly adult context. Continuing in the direction of Never Surrender, the entire second side forms a loose concept focusing on different perspectives of time. Thunder 7 became an RIAA-certified gold album in 2003. In 1985, the band released Stages, a double live set culled from the previous 3 tours. On June 7, 1985, Triumph was ranked number 2 in Performance magazine's 6-week period-ending Tops and Performance list. Triumph would take a more commercial turn with their 1986 studio album, The Sport of Kings. Rik Emmett's Somebody's Out There reached the American Top 40 in late 1986, gaining some radio and video exposure. Written and recorded in the 11th hour of The Sport of Kings sessions, in an attempt to deliver a hit single to satisfy the demands of the record company, Rik Emmett's Somebody's Out There made it to number 27 on Billboard during September and October of 1986, climbing higher than Hold On. It stands as the highest charting song from the Triumph catalog. Gil Moore's Tears in the Rain, cut from the same cloth as Mind Games, did not fare as well in the charts. Adding Rick Sanders to their lineup, Triumph toured with Swedish guitarist Inge Malmsteen across the United States. In 1987, the band attempted a return to form with Surveillance. While Gil Moore and Mike Levine remained firmly planted in blues rock, Rik Emmett took a more modern progressive turn, even involving Dixie Dregs and Kansas guitarist Steve Morse. They collaborated on a dual guitar solo for Gil Moore's angst-ridden vocal on the Emmett penned Headed for Nowhere. The 1988 tour concluded amid growing disharmony over business decisions and artistic direction. However, their final concert on September 3, 1988, was a spirited show on the Kingwood stage at Canada's Wonderland, just north of Toronto. In late 1988, Rik Emmett made a total break with Triumph, a costly move resulting from a long-standing agreement that if any one of the trio left, they would leave with only 1/9 interest. He subsequently began a modest but distinguished solo career, with his first album, Absolutely, yielding 4 hits in Canada. Meanwhile, Triumph released 1989's Classics as their obligatory 5th album ode to MCA Records. 1990 present equals, in 1992, the remaining members of Triumph recruited Phil Xenidis, a Canadian guitarist known for his work with Aldo Nova and Frozen Ghost. Moore was the principal songwriter and lead singer for 1992's Edge of Excess, with additional help from guitarist-producer Mladen. Rick Sanders also remained on hand as touring keyboardist and singer for the 1993 North American tour, singing Rik Emmett's parts in fan favorites Magic Power and Fight the Good Fight. Initial reception of the album from American radio seemed quite favorable, until Triumph's recording label, a subsidiary of Polygram, dissolved unexpectedly in 1993. After this downturn, the remaining members of Triumph effectively disbanded. In 1998, Rik Emmett resisted overtures from his former bandmates for a potentially lucrative 20th anniversary U.S. tour, stating he was not interested. Nevertheless, Moore and Levine purchased and acquired back their entire album catalog from MCA and launched their own label TML Entertainment, and they continue to release live recordings and videos from their long career. In 2003, TML released a live DVD album called Live at the U.S. Festival, originally recorded in San Bernardino, California at the U.S. Festival in 1983. This historic festival, attracting nearly 250,000 rock fans, also featured Van Halen and The Clash. Triumph had earlier released this concert on VHS following the Never Surrender tour, featuring 2 videos from the forthcoming Thunder 7 album. In 2004, TML released a second DVD concert, A Night of Triumph, filmed in 1987 at Halifax Metro Centre during the Sport of Kings. The most comprehensive Triumph anthology, Livin' for the Weekend, anthology, was issued in 2005. A CD of extended versions of some of the band's most popular hits called Extended Versions, Triumph was released in 2006. Gil Moore now owns and operates Metalworks Studios in Mississauga, originally opened in the early 1980s for Triumph's exclusive use, which also trains engineers and sound technicians for Canada's music industry. On March 10, 2007, Triumph was inducted to the Canadian Music Industry Hall of Fame in a ceremony at Toronto Euro Unregistered Trademark S Fairmont Royal York Hotel. All original members of the group were present for the event. This first meeting in nearly 20 years appears to have broken the long silence between Rik Emmett and his former bandmates, but a recent interview with the guitarist did not promise a Triumph reunion. Emmett cited Gil Moore's full-time career at Metalworks, plus the fact Moore has not performed as a drummer since 1993. Bassist Mike Levine also does not seem to have much interest in touring at this late date. But Triumph's one-time camaraderie seems to have rekindled, and there may still be future collaborations on some musical level. For example, Nick Lagana mastered Rik Emmett's latest hard rock project, Airtime, in the Metalworks mastering suite. On April 6, 2008, Triumph was inducted into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame as part of the Juno Awards. Lay It on the Line was released as a DLC song for Guitar Hero 5 on October 22, 2009. In 2011, the band reissued Allied Forces as a vinyl package for their 30th anniversary. On July 14, 2011, Triumph Lane, in Mississauga, ON, was officially dedicated in honor of the band. On August 28, 2012, the band released a CD plus DVD package of their June 7, 2008 reunion concert in Sweden titled Live at Sweden Rock Festival on Frontiers Records in Europe and on the TML label in Canada and the United States. In 2013, Triumph was inducted into Legends Row at the inaugural ceremony held at Mississauga City Hall. Philanthropy. Since the group a Euro unregistered trademark S inception, individually and collectively, Triumph have contributed time, energy, music, facilities, equipment and funds in support of a wide range of charitable, educational and humanitarian causes. Tumpa Euro unregistered trademark S largest single charitable contribution was its final appearance at Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto, January 22, 1987. Staged by Gary Slight for the Sounds United campaign of the United Way of Canada, Greater Toronto Division, all proceeds of $179,356.66 were donated. More recently, the trio has raised over $250,000 with its Signed Guitars program. Since 2009, Triumph has signed over 100 Fender guitars and donated them to various charities for live and silent auctions, raising between $1,500 and $6,500 each. Individually, Emmett has also contributed guitars for kids with cancer, CNIB Right for Sight and Barrett House AIDS Hospice. In 2011, Triumph donated their music and business archives to the University of Toronto Libraries, which were valued by University of Toronto appraisers at over $1 million. Moore, Levine and Emmett have participated, together and alone, in many major fundraising events, including the latter a Euro unregistered trademark S appearance on a Euro OE Tears Are Not Enough a Euro, the Canadian music industry single for Ethiopian famine release in 1985, which would eventually raise over $3.5 million. Moore was on the committee, along with Tom Cochrane and Russia unregistered trademark S. Alex Lifeson, and others, who spearheaded the tsunami relief effort, Canada for Asia, in January 2005. Other causes Triumph and Metalworks have supported and or sponsored include, Music Counts, Rockstar for a Day Program, the Childrena unregistered trademark S-Wish Foundation, Canada's Walk of Fame Emerging Artist Program, Canadian Music Week National Songwriting Contests, many high school Battle of the Bands, Full Circle, Camp Rock, Bike for Betty, and Friends of Week Era Easter Seals. The state-of-the-art facilities at Metalworks Studios have also been donated many times to help causes, including the Canadian Live 8 concert, held in Barrie, Ontario on July 2, 2005. In 1996, Triumph donated royalties from 1 million units of the song Magic Power on the certified diamond Oh What a Feeling, a vital collection of Canadian music compilation CD in support of the Canadian Academy of Recording Arts and Science and Juno Award, as they have done many times in support of charitable initiatives. Moore has participated in and donated Triumph autographed guitars to countless celebrity golf fundraising tournaments over the years. Levine has bowled for T.J. Martell Foundation, and Emmett regularly performs at fundraisers for many causes, including AIDS, food bank and shelter benefits. In 2013, Emmett was awarded the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal in 2012 for community service, and Moore was given a star on the Mississauga Music Walk of Fame for contributions to education and community support. Metalworks Production Group was given the 2014 Sam McAlean Small Business Community Involvement Award by the Mississauga Board of Trade. Metalworks Institute coordinates volunteers for Make Music Matter, a Calgary-based charity, by going to Africa and sharing their technological and musical training. And the music curriculum from the school has been donated for use by Drakia unregistered trademark S. Strawberry Mansion High School Studio Project for Underprivileged in Philadelphia since 2013. In May 2015, Moore received the Mississauga Arts Council, Laurie Pallett Patron of the Arts, Marty Award for his contributions to the Mississauga arts community. The group members have also served on various boards over the years. Currently, in 2014, Moore is on the advisory boards of Music Canada and CAAMA, and Levine serves on the board of directors and advisory board for the Musiciensa unregistered trademark rights organisation Canada. In the past, Emmett has served on the advisory boards at Humber College and the Songwriters Association of Canada. Moore has also served on the executive board at Canadian Academy of Recording Arts and Science as well as the Toronto Musicians Association. Members. Discography. Studio albums compilation albums Awards. References. External links, Triumph official website, Rik Emmett official website, Rik Emmett interview on Maximum Threshold 2008 Gold Platinum Database Canada, Gold Platinum Database USA, Triumph Productions Archive at the University of Toronto Media Commons.